The song that came to mind was from the Decemberists, and it's on their album, I'll Be Your Girl, and the title of it is Everything is Awful, which is how I titled my sermon, which could have been a mistake because I was realizing that if people read that ahead of time and saw that was the title, like, are they really going to come to church? But here you are, so that's encouraging. So I wanted to play you a clip of this song just so you can fully appreciate it. So we're going to try this. When I first heard this song, whoops, Chungers has me way up so you could hear the song, I thought the song was actually awful. I was not amused, and all I could think about was, who would ever listen to this? This is terrible. And beyond the refrain that says everything, 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 everything is awful, here's one of the verses, just so you can fully appreciate that the song doesn't get any better. What's that crashing sound follows us around? That's the sound of all good things breaking. Put your fears to rest. You know it's for the best. As a choir of angels sings, everything, everything, everything is awful. But the more I thought about it, and the more I have lived with this song in our house occasionally, I have been able to find the humor in it. But even more, I have realized that in some ways we need songs like this for the times when it feels as if everything is stacked against us. The story of the birth of Jesus that we listen to all through Advent through a variety of texts is a story about how awful everything was. In our text from Isaiah today, things couldn't get more awful. The Israelites were in exile and they had lost all hope. This could have been their theme song. There was no peace in the land, there was no peace in their community, and there was no peace for any of them individually. The prophet was trying to proclaim a hope and a peace in the midst of that would be coming in the future. The prophet was trying to say, life is not always going to be this awful. The picture that was painted by the prophet Isaiah included hope in a coming descendant of Jesse who would judge and rule differently than other rulers because this one would be guided by the Spirit and have wisdom and understanding and knowledge and reverence for God. This one would decide with equity for those who suffer in the land. What a promise! The most vivid and in some ways unrealistic part of the imagined world that Isaiah was trying to paint was the way that animals would be with each other. In the natural order of the animal world, certain animals dominate and eat other animals. That's just the way it is. Anyone who has ever lived through middle school knows of this world. But in the painted picture in our text, the animals who would normally eat each other end up instead playing together and sleeping with each other without eating each other. Neither animal or human will hurt or kill on God's holy mountain. What a vision of peace for the exiles who were invited into hope. Mortal enemies will become friends. Think Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell. What God has promised and will bring to pass is a deep, organic change in social relationships at all levels. This vision was meant to startle. It was meant to surprise. God is not a wizard, though, and this kind of fundamental shift in the created order does not happen with the snap of a finger or the waving of a wand. It happens when people like us get on board and commit ourselves to making the change happen. Jesus was sent into the world not to do it all alone, but to rally the masses, to get people like us to imagine a world where domination could end and peace and justice could be the new realities, where the strong stop devouring the weak. Father Flager, who is a friend of this congregation and the priest at the community of St. Sabina Parish, is fond of saying that Sunday morning worship is the huddle before everyone in the congregation goes out into the world to do the work of God. Hope and peace are not bestowed on us from on high. Instead, they result from the ways that we too become the embodiment of God in the world. The ways in which we live the vision of God in the here and now are the ways that lead to hope and peace. Over the course of this year, I have become friends with Rabbi Seth Limmer, who is the senior rabbi at the Sinai congregation downtown. He's part of a group of faith leaders in Chicago working for justice, equity, and liberation. He wrote an opinion piece in the Chicago Tribune this week on Hanukkah that I wanted to share with you. He uses the words light and darkness, and rather than change his words, I would encourage you to think of those images not in terms of race or skin color, but in terms of the contrasting images of night and day, order and chaos, liveliness and deathliness. Here's what he says. Everybody loves a miracle, and light isn't so bad either. On Hanukkah, we kindle the lamps of the menorah in commemoration of that famed miracle from thousands of years ago. One small container of oil had the miraculous power to burn brightly for 8 days of rededicating our temple. Against the backdrop of winter, our menorah grows by one candle for 8 straight nights as we celebrate this miracle and light a literal candle against the darkness of our world. But the truth is, this miracle is a manufactured one. The story of the oil lasting 8 days only appeared 500 years after the holiday began. The history of this holiday began as an annual commemoration of the way the Maccabees celebrated their victory over the oppression of Antiochus IV. They rededicated the sacred temple, resumed the sacred service, and welcomed the entire community in festive rejoicing. While everyone today knows about the miracle and the 8 crazy nights, for 5 centuries, celebrating Hanukkah had nothing to do with miracles. Hanukkah has everything to do with dedication. The real miracle of Hanukkah was that right triumphed over might. The powerful empire that sought to repress minority rights, to erase those who were different, to disallow individuals from following the mandates of their hearts and minds, that empire was ultimately extinguished. When the many tried to trample the rights of the few, when protections for the most vulnerable were stripped away, when minority lifestyles were banned at the point of execution, Hanukkah happened. The minority rose up in protest, stood up for their rights. Maybe metaphorically, it was a miracle that the Maccabees defeated the Syriac Greeks, but in reality, it was the focused dedication of human hands that led to a new era of freedom for all. On the 4th night of Hanukkah, which is when this article was written, half of the menorah is lit and the other 4 candles await future days. The image is powerful. We see starkly one half in light, another half in darkness. I cannot help but reflect on our present, in which there is so much brightness in our world, and too many corners still benighted. On this fourth night of Hanukkah, with its balance of light and dark, I am focused on what shines brightly and where light is still needed. And against this backdrop, I also think about that focused dedication of human hands. Here in America, these past months, our metaphorical menorah of justice and freedom itself seems half lit. A jury in Wisconsin delivered a verdict that seemingly allows white vigilantes to roam the streets. Another jury in Georgia held accountable vigilantes who pursued and murdered Ahmaud Arbery, a black man. When it comes to the horrifying toxicity of gun violence in America, or when we confront our haunted history of racial injustice, two juries might have made their decisions, but justice still seems a long way away. The same is true for so many vulnerable communities in Chicago and throughout the country. In Illinois, immigrants are receiving greater protection with every legislative session. In America, comprehensive immigration reform seems to be further away with every passing day. In Chicago, we are finally seeing a citywide focus on issues of equity and racial justice, but after decades of structural racism, even healthy initiatives and investments don't always move the needle enough. For all of the bright progress we have made securing rights for the queer community, we know the dark fear and vulnerability that still haunts many, especially in the trans community. There is no doubt we are making progress and have a reason for hope. There is also no doubt that there is still too much darkness for too many. The power of our commemoration of dedication is that in time, light will come to dispel the darkness. In our tradition, we do not wait for a miracle for that to happen. We make that light shine in due time through the dedicated work of our hands. Ours is a city, a society, a country, at best halfway on its way to living up to the potential of our aspirations. I hope all of us, regardless of our tradition, can appreciate both how far we have come, even as we are wary about how far we still have to go. I hope that we can take with us the core message of the miracle of Hanukkah, that a group of individuals, no matter how small, focus together on liberating minorities from oppression and securing freedom for all, will ultimately see their light, the light of justice and peace, shine brightly for all. Thank you, Rabbi Seth Limmer. At this time of year, when the days are short and the nights are long, when the chaos of the pandemic of COVID, on top of the pandemic of 1619, on top of the pandemic of gun violence in this country, seem out of control, how can we have hope? From where will our peace come? From God? Yes, but not because of magic. The hope and peace that God gives is dependent upon our own dedication. To what are you dedicated? To what are we dedicated as a congregation, as a community? When everything is awful, as the song says, we cannot expect God to do something about it if we are content with doing nothing. On the other hand, as Rabbi Seth pointed out in his opinion piece, a group of individuals, no matter how small, focused together can be a liberating force in this world. Friends, while we may hope for world peace, which is a macro vision, a huge vision, our focus needs to be on the next right step to take, which is the micro vision, the smaller vision. What is keeping us from peace and from being peacemakers today? That question is important. Let's first identify and then work on those things. Anxiety, worry, resentment, hatred, addiction, fear. Whatever it is, let's dedicate ourselves to the healing of it. And then we can live in the world as peacemakers and invite others to be peacemakers. How can we do that? We dedicate our hands to the work of nonviolence. Nonviolent communication, which sometimes I think is the hardest part of the work. Nonviolent financial stewardship. Nonviolent organizations and communities. Nonviolent work to dismantle supremacy in all of its forms. Now, I know that none of us probably wanted this sermon to end in one more thing that we have to do, and I am sorry to disappoint. I found myself wishing that I could say that God will fill us with hope and peace from the comfort of our living rooms while we do nothing. But the story of Advent, every single story that is read during this season, is about how God used ordinary people and even ordinary animals and ordinary stars and ordinary jobs to open the world to the embodiment of God in real time. We now join that long list of characters this Advent season. So maybe the news of this morning isn't what we hoped for, but maybe it will bring us peace. Amen.